Hello, I'm Jim Tolles. I'm a spiritual teacher and I blog regularly at spiritualawakeningprocess.com. Today I want to talk about expanding in consciousness in an unconscious world. There are a lot of different aspects of this, and most often people are stuck in a much more ego phase where they're seeing issues with the world and ways that people harm each other and otherwise do things from a place of unkindness, from darkness, from ignorance. They don't really understand how they're influencing the world around them. They're still very much self-centered, and it's easy for somebody, as they've stepped out a little bit, to be able to see all that going on in other people. And that tends to lead towards this inner self-righteous ego self that says, well, we should change it, and they're doing it wrong, and what's and on and on and on. And it kind of has this strange way of melding together a little bit of truth with a lot of ignorance in themselves. But as you go, you continue to let go of any need to change anything. This is always confusing to people earlier on the path because they confuse that letting go of the need to change others and to change the external world as a form of passivity, as a form of naivete, and these types of things. It's not well understood what's happening here, I think. But it's not naive. It's simply understanding the truth of life, that life is. There is only so much a human being can ever do to influence the world around us. It doesn't preclude us from engaging in places where we see unkindness, where we see harm that someone is doing to oneself or to others around them. But the ego self, especially earlier on when people are just starting to get some of these little tastes of consciousness, of expanded awareness, it thinks it can do more than it can. It thinks it can change the whole world by itself, and I think this is part of some of the narratives that are going on in Western culture, right? Focus on this one singular hero who does everything for everyone. And this is a big problem in a lot of political spheres because the people think that this one individual or these few individuals can do everything for them, can resolve every problem that they have. And this is a way that people actually disempower themselves. And even if you think you're the one who's supposed to be doing all these things, that's a disempowerment to you because there's a limit on what you can do. And you can exhaust yourself endlessly trying to fix all these things. And we tend to also, in those earlier phases, try to fix and resolve things we don't fully understand yet. This tends to be an issue in U.S. foreign policy where the U.S. has gone into situations in the past, let's say Vietnam, and it's not fully understood the situation, did not understand that this was an independence movement. It had nothing to do with macro political communist movements that were going on at the time. And that, of course, led to all kinds of suffering. Something like over 3 million Vietnamese were killed in that war with the U.S. In the U.S., I think it was something around like 56,000 soldiers that were killed. And for what? Right. So this is kind of the nature of ignorance. That's kind of expanding out into a bigger scale. And that's certainly not coming from any level of real consciousness about where things were going in the world. But the principle is the same. It's this having a little bit of information, but not enough. And as we grow on the spiritual path, we really need to continue to focus on our own growth first, to really understand ourselves, because in clearing away those blind spots that we don't realize we have, otherwise they wouldn't be blind spots, then we can start to understand life more. And that takes us further and further into these spaces of peace, of just allowing life to be as it is. And sometimes as you're progressing, you'll get to these points where you really do let go of the mindset of hurting others, because it just doesn't make any sense anymore. Because you understand the truth that if you hurt someone else, you hurt yourself. That's the law of oneness. And the law of oneness isn't a belief. Earlier on, it sounds like a belief. It's like, oh, I should just believe we're all one. But then people kind of believe it and they kind of don't, and the mind is trying to say, well, I mean, how can we be all one? I'm different than my fork, right? We're not really connected, are we? I mean, all these different things where the mind is trying to understand something that's a truth and trying to just believe in something blindly. But as you go and you let go, you do see, yes, actually you and the fork are one. And from understanding that oneness, you also understand duality better. And that's the beauty of that evolution. But from time to time, as you continue to let go and you stop participating in some of the old unhealthy ways of thinking and acting, you may see something that happens in life that may surprise you a little. It's like, oh wow, people really are still this selfish. Oh wow, people really still hurt each other, or they say these things, or they manipulate each other. That's still actually happening. And another reason why this may be a little surprising is because you're just not focusing on those aspects of life, those media channels, those whatever before may have been reinforcing certain beliefs, because that's a lot of the ways that we think is through constant reinforcement. When the mind starts to clear itself and to stop being caught up in these old thought patterns, you lose that reinforcement, so you don't think that way. And once again, this isn't naive. It just starts to come from a deeper space of understanding, and you start to see even more clearly how deluded people are. Like, wow, they really don't understand. And it doesn't come from judgment. Judgment is a much earlier part of the spiritual ego self that tries to grow up, because the ego is always looking to hang around. It's like, wow, I'll just create a bunch of new beliefs, right? Oh, people should do this and do that, and go off on a righteous crusade to save the world, as I said. No, it's not coming from any sort of naivete. It's coming from this deeper understanding that this doesn't serve anyone. That mugging on the street that somebody might see, that's not serving either person. We already know it's not serving the person who's being mugged, but it's not serving the person who's doing the action. They're actually taking from themselves. And for some of you, that may actually lead you towards authentic healing, authentic spiritual teaching, because you just understand that most of humanity, they're like children. They just don't understand. They've never been taught. They've never seen a model. And I mean, this is why, regardless of whether you want to teach or heal or not, it's important for all of you to continue to grow and to change and to drop into this beautiful space of stillness that grows and changes you in the most intelligent way possible, where any need to control really starts to just drop away, because something emerges on its own that's beautiful and kind and understanding and compassionate, all these things. It doesn't require that much effort, because people need to see you. They need to see other ways of behaving, because most people are mimics, if not all of us. Predominantly, we do what we see. We believe what we hear. It's a much more advanced person who learns how to think. That sounds kind of funny, but for the most part, we just practice thinking and acting the way we see around us growing up, and that just goes on. And it's very rare for us to awaken or to do enough serious inner work to really break down the structures going on in our head that are framing how we see everything. And even with that surprise that I'm mentioning for somebody seeing somebody being mugged, and you're awakened, that's a little bit of an ego framework. The further you go, even that is this exploration of consciousness of beauty that's arising in front of them. Doesn't mean that person wouldn't call the police, okay? But there's just a depth of love and understanding and openness that moves through, that sees all of life. And it doesn't need to change it. And I think that's a really important thing to emphasize, especially for anybody who's earlier on the path, is not trying to change the external world. Not at first. Like when that arises from you naturally, that's a different feeling than just feeling like something is wrong. And certainly there are certain issues to get involved with, and you can certainly do that, but you really need to understand yourself more. Otherwise, you don't really understand how you're interacting with life, what you're trying to get, because a lot of what we're trying to get earlier on is a sense of peace within ourselves. We think that by reshaping life, by stopping all muggings, I guess that's the metaphors for today, that we're going to be happy, we're going to be okay, and everything's going to be fine. And that will just keep going. It's like after that, it'll be something else. It'll be stopping murders, it'll be stopping guns, it'll be stopping drugs of certain different kinds. It'll be renewable energy, right? So the ego will keep finding things for you to do. Later on, you catch that sooner. When the ego starts to say, oh, I need to change the external world. That'll make me happy in some way, in whatever way that is. In smaller ways, it's just, trying to change your partner, or change your children, or change your parents, or change your friends, right? To get them to see the way that you see things, and that's fundamentally an ego thing. So expanding in consciousness simply means coming more into yourself, allowing the world to be unconscious as it is in whatever way that it is. And from time to time, as I said, there may be this arising inside that comes without agenda, without judgment. It says, here is something that needs attention. It needs my attention, and I'm going to offer it. And it can be just that neutral. No anger, no fear. Obviously, we're human beings, so there's different qualities of those feelings may still arise, but they won't dictate your actions to you. They won't get in the way of your actions per se, even if they feel really powerful as you're doing something. You continue to do what feels true to you. And you continue to be at rest when you feel that you need to be at rest. And that is really kind of the essence of expanding in consciousness in an unconscious world, is allowing the inner divinity to guide you rather than whatever is going on and trying to trigger you in the external world. I hope these thoughts have been helpful. Once again, my name is Jim Tolles, and you can find me regularly blogging at spiritualawakeningprocess.com. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe. Have a beautiful day.